Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We are back at Chung, and Chung is a 3v3 map. You got this little, well, maybe not so little lake on the left. You have a couple of spawn zones. You got the one in Bravo and the one in Hotel, although there is only one air spawn here. Mirrored for blue, air comes in here, and ground comes in there. There's usually quite a lot of heavy fighting over this forest and the crossing that you have with this little river that goes through here. You can very quickly scoot across with small infantry transports, ideally motorized, so you can also cross the field quickly, but mechanized will also do the trick. It's not the only part where you can see usually quite a bit of action. HGMs tend to fly back and forth across this field. Over here it becomes, at least from my perspective, really difficult to cross for either party. It's restricted in the sense that you only have this bridge here. You got the bigger bridge there, but it's also overwatched by the town. And it's so open that if you want to get anywhere, you're going to have to probably start from here or there and smoke your way / amphibious your way across. Yes, amphibiousing is now a verb. Amphibious your way across and hope that you make it to the other side, where the enemy team can very easily airstrike you from there, or blue from over here. So these sectors, difficult. And then you have Delta and Charlie. These sectors too can be heavily contested, but again, it's very open. You got only 2 bridges here, and that makes it less likely to see action. And then there's the town and this forest here. This is usually where you have a bit of back and forth as well, but once either party captures either the town here or the forest over there, it becomes pretty difficult. And I mean difficult for the party that captures it. Because let's say that blue 4, starting here, captures this town. You then have to try and get resources over there. You have to get resupplies, you have to make sure that the HGMs keep going there. You have to make sure that there's anti-air, because, well, you might park your anti-air over here in this forest. But if you do that over there, then you have a problem. Because the aircraft can come in from over here, or even do a sort of semi-flyby, drop its payload, and fly off without even getting into range of your anti-air. Vice versa, similar deal. Red 4 could make their way across with an amphibious landing and then capture the forest, but well, then what? Blue 4 can see you coming from quite literally several miles away, and getting resupplies in there is equally difficult. So it is not an easy map to play. It usually bogs down into a bit of a slugfest. It is a conquest match, however, so one of the teams is going to have to do something to force the other's hand. Now, it is a pretty quick game. 18 minutes, 35 seconds, and that's including the already 3 minutes that we have spent on setup time. The reason why I'm showing you this is because the flanks are going to be important. Now, I am so old that I played Command & Conquer Generals way back in the day. And there was this one tank general, General Quai, some of you might remember it. He had this... Well, apart from the usual taunting, he had this line that went something like, "Are you protecting your flanks, General? Why don't we have a look?" I hope I'm attributing that to the right general, but the lesson stuck. Check your flanks. Make sure nothing can go through your flanks. Because if you overlook even one part and the enemy probes there and finds that there's nothing in there, well, you might get punished for it. Now we have Echo rushing forward to take the town over here, where he's going to run into Master Steph. He was probably not expecting that much resistance, Master Steph that is, because it is on their side of the river after all. But the Lynxes, undeterred, close down, or close in, land, drop off their infantry, the FKP. They land entirely, which is an interesting strategy. Unfortunately for them, there are Gorna Strelki 90 around. But they are heavily suppressed, and not even that, they're getting murdered by the FKP, which have only taken a few casualties, a bit of mortaring, but aside from that they're perfectly fine. So Blue 4 has their presence over there. It's not going so well for Blue 4 on the other flank. The US Marines are very much getting punished by a large Red 4 contingent. Got lots of infantry, backed up with autocannon fire, a T-72 Wilk, although it's too close to a building to actually be useful. They even have top cover, They have units on the flank over here, which will intercept anything that makes it towards that town. And Blue 4 just lost a lot of stuff over there. They have a longbow, they have a stinger, and they might not even have that longbow for much longer. There we go, longbow is down, SU-27 takes the kill. And that means that this flank pretty much got eradicated. That, however, also works in reverse. The FKP were able to kick out anything that made it to this town, and thereby there's only a T-72BU, a Tor, a BTR, and a Modestrelki left. Now, I'm not sure what the income was set to in this match, I can't tell that, but overall it seems like it was not that high. Master Steph is bringing in more units. Maybe not the right ones, considering that they're BMP-1Ds with infantry. My thinking is I would try and get more reconnaissance. Sure, you want this forest back, but I would first want to try and, let's say, stop the bleeding. So I would try and put infantry, reconnaissance infantry in there, so that I can see what is coming towards this town. And then potentially do more airstrikes over here, which means that the strikes arrive immediately, and then I don't have to sacrifice infantry. Because he has no recon on this flank, and that makes it very, very dangerous. Speaking of flanks, we also have the flank over here. Echo is covering it with a Lynx and an automatic. And the enemy has, well, Red 4 has Razvedka and 1 Ural. I would be in favor of putting the Lynx a bit more further out, either here or there, to make sure that nobody can sneak in. The Razvedka, I would more likely put them, well, here or just over here in the open. It's fine because you're not that likely to get spotted anyway. Now Red 4 is working their way through the Blue 4, well, remaining units that they had over here. They have a very sizable group of units over there. We have a couple of stay-behinds here. 7 Navy SEALs are across the river. They have absolutely nowhere to go and nothing to do but try and survive. And it's currently only really a matter of time before Red 4 decides to go on the offensive. And the BMD-3s can float across, the BTRDs can float across, the BMP-1Ds can't. So these are a bit of the odd ones out. They're useful when sweeping a forest, but you could argue that Red 4 might have known at this point that there were so many units out here in the town that it's not likely that Blue has anything here. The Navy SEALs are being requested to move over there. It's going to be a short trip, I think, because there's VDV in the way and all sorts of infantry. Blue 4, in the meanwhile, not devoting too many resources to this side, has decided to make their push here. The FKP are out, they have been killed off. BMP-1Ds are trying to push in with the infantry. Some of the infantry got wiped out in an airstrike. Maglans over here are an interesting choice. I wouldn't go for it, because the Maglan and their Spike MR are far better at range. Right now they're just being used as a sort of line infantry, which they are potent in a line infantry role, I'll give you that. But they're just not that numerous. There's only 4 of them at the moment. And sure enough, they're killing off these Modestrelki really without that much of a hitch, but I find Maglan to be too valuable to do frontline work like this. I would put Maglan over there, were it not for the T-72BU. But they might be able to intercept any kind of infantry transport, well, infantry transport that is, or heavy unit that comes across here. For some reason, Red 4 has neglected to capture Charlie and Alpha, and because of that, they are losing to Blue 4 pretty substantially. Blue has this point lead of 219 points currently, and it just keeps ticking with a +3. Red 4 has to do something. Now Red 4 could be doing something, and that is push across. I like what Echo is doing here. He's flanking with a couple of Lynxes, just sort of probing what the enemy has, and considering the response, he knows that there is quite a bit out there. And Boom 007 says, yeah, careful. Might be a bit late. At any point, Red 4 cannot really gain too much over here. It would have to be an all-out offensive. And there is one critical unit that I don't see over here, and that's a group of mortars. Because, yes, you can get across the river pretty quick, but then you're in the open field. And that means that you still have a ways to go, which is not ideal. Especially not if you have 2 M1A2 Abrams staring down across that field. backed up with an automatic. So helicopters are not an option either. And anything that is, which is 12, I think? Yeah, anything that has 12 armor or less is bound to have a terrible day. Red 4 needs to move. They need to be probing flanks over here. And had they done that, they would know that there really isn't that much over here. They would get some response from the M1A2. They would get a response from the automatic, sure. But that's really the only thing that Blue 4 has over here. Blue 4 on the other side is probing in a very, very aggressive manner. Again, it's Echo. He's also the one who sent in the replay. Echo is pushing with 1 lynx with a command, or yeah, with a command infantry, and 1 lynx with just a regular recon unit inside. If they can get Alpha, then they can make sure that Red 4 starts losing points really quickly. Look at, by the way, how bold this command vehicle is. Echo just drove it into Charlie, trying to capture it. This is definitely a case of win harder, because Blue 4 didn't really have to, but he was just, again, probing the line, and it seemed to be working. Up until the point where he ran into Moleemann. But I applaud the initiative. I think that probing is a good idea. Probing with a command unit, maybe slightly less so. It might be somewhat too aggressive. Now Red 4 seems to be making a bit of a trial over here on the right, where the BMD-3 is currently in contact with the automatic and actually wins that fight after landing 1 Conqueror's M hit. Meaning that Red 4 could only be staring at 2 M1A2s and of course some air support. Air support which is currently getting neutralized because somebody decided to turn off their anti-air and the Prowler makes it out, but only just. At any rate, there's really, again, not that much. Probe the lines. FKP over here, fascinating. But 1 airstrike could wipe all of this out. If you want to defend here, put your HEGMs over here. Because from here, anything that you can see coming, so HEGM plus recon, plus ideally is something that's... Well, it doesn't have to be an M1A2, it could be an M1A1 or even an older M1 variant. Anything can just shoot at stuff as it comes across the river. If you have all your infantry over here, you have all your eggs in, well, in 1 tree line. And because of that, you're very easy to wipe out. So spread out. This is not the way that I would ideally do it. Doesn't mean that I have the only right way to do it. Absolutely not. There are so many different ways to play the game. Now, we know that the enemy has captured Alpha because there is a CV in there. Of course, they don't know that they're, or where the CV is, but they know that there is a CV. Blue 4 is still getting points because Red 4, for some reason, has his command unit not in Alpha, or sorry, not in Charlie. Even though they could be driving towards Charlie and dropping them off. And yes, Blue 4 is making life a bit uncomfortable for Red 4, but Red 4 still has plenty of terrain to make sure that they have some safety. So what are we seeing over here? Red 4 is a bit ground down. They're a bit stuck. There are tons and tons and tons of units over here that could have been made useful. These 4 BWPs, they're amphibious. They can float across, but they're not doing it. They could make it very difficult for Blue 4 to try and hold on to this sector, but they're not doing it. Blue 4, in the meanwhile, is playing a very dangerous game with 1 FKP group. Oh, sorry, it's an FKP, it's not even recon. And 1 group of command infantry. They have brazenly parked their helicopters right in the field, where they can be spotted by anything that has eyes on it, any reconnaissance vehicle. Ideally, especially since, and of course this is easy as I'm doing the commentary post gameplay. I wasn't a factor in this game. Send in your aircraft. If you're Red 4, they're going to probably go here or there. The Su-27PU is circling over there. The Su-27 or any other aircraft, most likely an anti-air or air-to-air unit, would be detecting helicopters if they were airborne. So I agree with these things being landed. I would just not want to do it over here. I would want to get these things over here. Because here there is absolutely no line of sight whatsoever. And if I see 2 lynxes, I know that there's something here. Maybe that's the point, maybe not. At any rate, I'd say it's easier and safer to get these lynxes over there. Now, Blue 4 been pushed back to this town. Red 4 reinforcing Charlie. The command infantry is still moving into position, but it's a bit late. Because Blue 4 is already sitting on 324 points. Sure enough, Red 4 is no longer bleeding. They're no longer losing points. And they might still have the time, seeing as there's 29 minutes left, to push across this river. But by not doing it, they're actually giving Blue 4 an advantage. Because what Red 4 had over here was a massive overpower, a massive mismatch in firepower. They had far more firepower than Blue 4 did, after they wiped Blue 4 out. But they decided to sit. They didn't decide to push. And that lack of probing of flank is probably going to cost them dearly. As all of these units are now pretty stuck, and the more time that you give Blue 4, the more units they bring in. Had they pushed, I think they could have made it to India. But reinforcing this forest, it's not really a priority. Now, what we see over here is that the FKP and the command infantry are moving. Initially, I thought they might be moving all the way to Bravo. If they could shut that down, that would not only deprive them of a spawn zone and actually gain Blue a spawn zone if they kill the CV over there, but also deprive Red of any kind of air force. Any air support would be lost. But instead, they're going for Alpha, which, from a conquest point of view, is actually the better option. Because by doing this, they can first make sure that they get a +2, and if they capture it, they get a +4. Which would very, very quickly gain them a lot of points. And even if they can only keep that up for a bit of time, it might be worth it. Now, you don't get that many command infantry units, let alone airborne. So they probably only have 3 of these in a deck. But Echo is using Danish pure, no mixes with other nations. Which means that he probably has the command points to spend on, I think, 2 different CV units. At any rate, the FKP have found the UAZ. Note what happens. Blue +2. They know that the sector is neutralized. Blue immediately starts taking points. Command infantry walks into the zone, and thereby not making their presence known. But now they do, and now Blue is at a +4. Red 4 still neglecting to probe the line over here. Now, what I'm curious about is who is doing this, and is their attention divided, perhaps? Because I'm seeing, from Hentai, I'm seeing quite a few units over here. And also units over, well, some units over here, here, and here. So he might be working on counteracting units over there. He might be working on countering the Blue 4 push there. Klanosek. Klanosek has some units over here. Pretty large gathering of units over there. He has been holding the town. He has some infantry over there. And the last... Oh, he's also bringing in a couple of units over here to make sure that nothing else makes its way either into Alpha or through Alpha to Bravo. And Master Steph, he is mostly sitting on this flank. He has no divided attention. Now, this means that 2 of the players, Hentai and Klanosek, they're distracted. They are looking at this flank over here. And thereby, Blue 4 has actually been... Well, they've been given a massive gift, in a way. Because by demanding attention from the enemy team over here, the enemy team cannot spend that attention over there. And attention in Wargame is a hell of a resource. It allows you to either focus on an attack, or, if you can command the attention of your opponent, make sure that they don't attack. Even if they have, or had, overwhelming numbers. And now, since the game is almost done, now you can see that some of the guys are going on the attack. But it's half-assed. There are a couple of BWP-1s coming in. BMP-1Ds, but they've decided to then not attack. Skyjets, we got an Mi-24 VP coming in. Something else that I'm not seeing, by the way, either is Recon. Might be a newer player here altogether. Now, I'm not hating on newer players in general. I mean, everybody had to learn somewhere. When I started playing Airland Battle back in the day, I got my ass handed to me by a medium or easy AI. So it's not entirely unusual for newer players to not use reconnaissance, to not push the attack when they have the potential for it. But I hope that if you are a newer player, maybe this is going to help you. Just probe the enemy line. Probe where the enemy is weak. See where they are and see where they might thus not be. If the enemy, in this case, let's say blue 4 is the enemy. If the enemy's pushing here, and you just wiped out a whole bunch of units at the start over there, then they might not have that much over here. So you might be able to press home your advantage and roll your way into India with your motorized, mechanized forces, whatever you have. Maybe even the helicopters could have gotten there. And yes, blue 4 can spawn units, sure. But you only need to eliminate one unit, the Murkova 1 Pikut over there. Not easy, but if you can get away with it, well, you just neutralized blue 4's spawn. And once that is done, it's, well, at least easier to start pushing towards the rest. But probing the flank here, even if it was just with one FKP and a command infantry, it's holding the position here long enough to get blue 4 a ton of points. A ton of points. They're at a +4 ticker. They're at 489 out of 500. This thing is going to be over very quickly. Name of the game? Flank. Either do the flanking or probe the enemy's flanks to see what they have. And if you find that they don't have anything, you might have an excellent opportunity to strike. Now, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. And I shall see you soon for another video.